If you or someone you know has diabetes, you may have built up an extra supply of test strips and lancets. That's where we come in. We'll buy the supplies that you don't need and resell them to those in need to prevent waste. Help us make diabetes management more affordable. Visit us at teststripswithaz.com.
All right, we have Dustin Lampros on the program. He will take part in the main event of Shamrock FC 324 in St. Louis next Friday. He will take on Lloyd Thornton on Fight TV. How are you, Dustin? Good to see you.
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. So we're a week away from this fight. Main event, Shamrock FC 324. How are you feeling as the minutes get closer and closer here?
I'm feeling great. Usually 6 weeks out, 4 weeks out is when I'm nervous a little bit, thinking about the fight, thinking about who I'm fighting. But the closer I get to the fight, the nerves kind of, are shaking out, and it's more of go time. I put in all the work, so I'm feeling amazing, and I just can't wait.
Do you get to a point where you're just like, man, I just wish fight day was tomorrow or an hour from now? Do you get kind of antsy at this point?
Yeah, I mean, you wish that, but at the same time, when the time comes, it's perfect. I don't want to rush it. Everything's falling in place, but of course, I'm waking up at 5:36 in the morning, just ready for the day because I can't wait to get to the next day, So, yeah, a little bit.
So you are 25 years old. You're 4-0 as a pro, 4 finishes, all in the first round. Let's talk about how you got into this sport, because I love these stories. They come from different places, so many different perspectives on how one finds a crazy sport like this one. How did you get into the gym for the first time? What got you into the fight game?
I've always been interested in it. As a kid growing up, I would say 11, 12, 13, I followed Pride a little bit. There used to be a video game. I think it might have been an old Pride video game or MMA game that I always liked and had Ken Shamrock on there, was Gracie, but always been a fan of the sport and always wanted to, try it. And then it so happened, life worked its way out. My dad was buying tickets to a local show near our hometown. It was a kickboxing show, and they asked my dad, and he bought it for my birthday, and he asked my dad if he knew anybody that would want to fight. And I was like, he's like, well, my son's kind of went to a gym a couple of times. He goes, I'll ask him, So he asked me, and I took a fight, and that's kind of how it started. I started training at this gym called Eagle and Dragon Mixed Martial Arts in Belleville, Illinois, and trained there just twice a week, with a couple buddies from school. It was nothing serious, but it was about when I was 16, I think, 15, 16. I met Tyron Woodley at a church down in Washington Park, and I told him, I was an aspiring fighter. I always thought it would be cool, and he was in Strikeforce at the time. So this was right before he built his first gym off Manchester out there in St. Louis, and he said, hey, in 2 years I'm gonna have my own gym, come out and train with me, learn MMA. And I was like, that'd be awesome. So 2 years went by. I was 17, 18, yeah, my senior year of high school. We were out there for a all-star football game, Missouri versus Illinois, and I got done and we were driving home. My dad was just like, he's like, we should hit up that Tyron Woodley guy and see if he has his gym. And so we did, and he opened his gym up 3 months before we called him, and went over there, and that was kind of it. After I started training there, I kind of fell in love with the sport, and I wasn't training full-time or anything, but just kind of going, because it was an hour drive from where I lived in Southern Illinois, so I was going there 2-3 times a week, and I had my first 3 amateur fights under Tyron Woodley, and then after that, I was out for a year with a hand injury, and then I moved down to South Florida.
So there's so much to digest with that story here.
Yeah, there's a lot there.
I want to start back at the beginning, because your dad got you tickets to a fight, and then the promoter essentially asked if he knew anybody who would want to fight, and he said, my son has trained a couple of times.
Yeah, exactly. It's a very small show, and they were looking, I guess, for fighters, and he was like, and I guess my dad mentioned, oh, I'm buying tickets for my son's birthday. He likes fighting. He just started training at a gym, so this would be a cool birthday present. And he goes, well, would he want to fight? He asked, and he's like, I don't know, I'll ask him. And he asked me, and I had my first fight on my 15th birthday.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's crazy. What was that like for you? Like you've gone to the gym a couple of times. Your dad gets you into a fight essentially at 15 years old. Like, what was that moment like for you? That must have been nuts.
Absolutely insane. I was so I had no idea what I was doing. I've only trained barely, like probably a handful of times. The kid I fought had like 6 fights. Obviously, they didn't really give me a good fight. They gave me one of their guys, and it was a crazy experience. I was bloody head to toe, to be honest. Like first round, I was just covered in blood. The kid was good. He's whooping my ass, and it actually ended in a disqualification, and I won. But yeah, it was crazy. The experience was insane, and I think that from that moment on, I knew like, all right, this would be cool to do again.
So you have your first amateur fight, which coincidentally was for Shamrock as well in 2012. Is that accurate?
Yeah. Yep.
So it was kind of an up and down run for your amateur career, and I saw that you fought Taiwan Claxton, so you fought some like really tough competition on your way up. Since you turned pro, you've just been on a tear. Four wins in a row, 4 first round finishes. When did you feel like everything started to click for you? Everything started to go in this great direction, put you on the path that you're on right now?
Well, really just being in the sport and dedicating my life to it and maturing in the sport. When I fought Taiwan, when I fought Eric Ellington, when I fought all those guys, I was a 21-year-old, 22-year-old kid that just, I had no background in martial arts, zero. Like I didn't have any wrestling, none at all. No real striking training, no jiu-jitsu. So when I fought those guys, like as an amateur, I took tough fights because I had mentors. People hired me saying, listen, as an amateur, take hard fights so you get that experience. And so when you go pro, you take smart fights and you build yourself and you go that way. So for me, I have no idea what the hell I'm doing in the sport. So I took my advice from my big brothers like Charles Rosa, Walt Harris, these guys in the UFC, Garrett Gross, all these guys that are veterans. I let them speak into my life, and I absorbed it all, and that's honestly why I'm on the path that I am on right now.
You get Lloyd Thornton, who's doesn't have a great record, but he's got a lot of experience, and there's a lot to be said with that. When you got the fight, when the contract came over, you were fighting Lloyd Thornton. Did you know a lot about him?
No, not at all. I just knew his record. I knew he had a lot of fights, more experience than I do, and he's older than I am. That's about it. I've never heard of him before, but I think it's a good fight for me. I think he's tough. I don't think it's just gonna be a walk. I don't expect him to fall over in the first 10 seconds of the fight. Like I expect him to put up a tough fight, and I think that with him having the experience on his side, that's more leverage for him. But, I in my eyes from the videos I've seen, I think it's a really good matchup for me.
How much is making the move to Hard Knocks 365, training with those guys, those killers? I know there's kind of different levels in terms of who trains with who and things like that. How much has that helped your game and evolved you in terms of a martial artist getting ready for this fight in your professional career?
Helped me tremendously. A lot. I recently, before I was at Hard Knocks, I was over at ATT for 2.5, 3 years, and so I was around those big name guys, and when I went there, I had no experience, literally none. Like I just took a couple of amateur fights, like I said, under Woodley. I trained with them a couple of times. So when I came over to Hard Knocks, it was different for me because I came back with a different mindset. I left and went home for a year to help out my mom, and then when I came back, she ended up passing like not even a month after I moved back here. She ended up passing away. So I started off my career at Hard Knocks like 3 weeks in with my mom passing and 5 weeks out from my third pro fight. So I think a lot of stuff has happened to make me like train differently and think differently. And when it comes to Hard Knocks, like the guys and the way we train together is such a family, such a team that it was huge for me. I needed that. I needed guys on my side that cared about me, that were checking in on me, making sure I'm all right, asking how my training's going. And, it has honestly propelled me in the craziest way.
Sorry to hear about your mom, and it's, parents are obviously very influential in what you do. I talked to Devin Powell, who was in the UFC for a while, getting ready to make his Bellator debut tomorrow. And he told me that throughout his entire career, his mom will hide in a bathroom while he fights. Like, she won't watch anything. She supports him, but she won't watch him fight. How influential was your mom, in your career? And to kind of add to that, what did she think about you being a fighter? How supportive was she of this career?
She has supported me in anything I did. She was just she was just the type of mom that, whatever it was that I wanted to do, she supported me in, and she was very supportive. And it's funny because, like, it makes me want to tear up thinking about it, but she was one of the ones that I always would hear in my fight. Her distinct voice, like her just yelling, "Let's go, Dustin!" Like, it's funny when I watch old videos, I hear her voice, but it's a big motivational thing for me because I want to just, make her proud, and I know I am, so I just want to continue to do that.
Do you feel her with you when you fight, even now?
Yeah. I think I said that. I ain't trying to be that like cliche, like, oh, my mom's with me, just because she passed. But when I was in the cage, my last fight, I pointed up and I was like, I got it. It made me feel more confident. Just even if it's make believe and it's not true, it made me feel better thinking in my head, you know what, my mom's got me. I'll be good. You know what I mean? So yeah, it was cool. But no, I think everything that's happened to me is why I'm on the path I am today, and I wouldn't change anything.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that very much. I had heard that UFC veteran Charles McCarthy, a name I haven't heard in a while, has been very supportive of you, has been guiding your career in a lot of directions. Is that true, and how did that happen?
Oh, crazy. Yeah, it's awesome to have him on my side. Yeah, it's very true. And that started through Charles Rosa. When I moved down here to South Florida, I was down here with one of my longtime buddies that I met through Tyron Woodley, Garrett Gross. That's who I was staying with. And then he introduced me to Rosa. I think it was like after his second UFC fight, or after his UFC debut versus Dennis Seaver. I met Charles at the gym, and him and actually Charles gave us a ride to the gym one day, but I didn't really know him. He just gave us a ride. I sat in the back seat. But later at that same day, McCarthy and Rosa were like, "Hey, Scrappy, Dustin, can you come over here and let us use you for a second?" So I was like, "Yeah," and I said, "Yeah, no problem." So McCarthy grabbed me and they drilled on me, used me for whatever Rosa needed, and it was from that point on, like, I always kept in touch with McCarthy. I was an amateur, so he couldn't. There wasn't a whole lot he could do besides give me a little bit of advice and tell me, "Hey, keep doing this, keep doing this. Don't turn pro until this, do this, do this." So he always was there speaking in my ear. But it was, once I turned pro, I started reaching out to him because I know he's the man to go to, and he's someone that I trust. He's someone that I feel like has my back, and he actually cares about me and wants to see me, excel in the sport. So yeah, it was really cool. I met McCarthy through Charles Rosa, though.
What'd you think of Rose's performance on Friday, a week ago today, taking on Manny Bermudez in Boston, 30 months away from the sport, doctors telling him he'll never fight again, goes in, submits Manny Bermudez, who missed weight, off of his back, a submission specialist. It was a pretty amazing story. I know a lot of people are giving him crap for having his feet in the fence, which I didn't have a problem with, due to, especially talking to Joe Lozon about it as well. What did you think of that? How motivating was that for you, seeing Charles Rosa have the performance he had with everything he's had to overcome?
Oh, bro, man. And you know what? On top of all that, I've been with him, throughout the whole camp, just hanging out with them outside. Obviously, we train at different gyms, but between training sessions and after training, we hang out all the time. It's one of my best friends. And I was actually at his house, sitting in his chair, watching him fight with his roommate, who's our good friend. But it was absolutely incredible, man. I knew, I looked over, I knew, even though he looked like he was in trouble, I said he wouldn't be holding on. He's way too experienced in advance to be holding on to that for any reason. And it was perfect. I mean, he submitted first round, a guy with 12 submission first round victories, Manny Bermudez, missing weight, coming back after all that. I mean, honestly, it's mind blowing. It's like, and the coolest thing about it is, that's like my big brother. I get to look up to that, and anytime I had issues throughout my camps or something, I just, I hit up him and say, "Hey man, how'd you deal with this? How'd you overcome this? What should I do?" So, that was awesome getting to see him win that. And not only that, in his hometown, in setting the record for third, most wins in Boston, beat Conor McGregor has 3 now. Like, I just, honestly, it makes me more confident going into my fight knowing that he did that, because I know that a little bit of him rubs off on me, so it's pretty special.
Yeah, that's amazing, man. It's hard to find, good people to support you, and you have like some of the biggest names in the sport supporting you, which has to be a big coup for you and give you a lot of confidence. But let's talk about next Friday. You versus Lloyd Thornton, main event, Fight TV. How does this thing all go down?
It's going to go down with fireworks. I'm going to come out stoked as ever, like I always am. I'm going to get the crowd going. I can't wait to get in there, and I'm just going to push the pressure. I like getting after it. I don't like hesitating. I don't like going in there and feeling, I've been feeling it out for 6 weeks now. You know what I mean? I've been out there, I'm ready to go in there and bang, and I want to go in there and fight. I want to see him drop, and I want to see the ref pull me off him. That's what I'm thinking is going to happen. I train way too hard and put way too much into this. I don't do anything other than train full time and sacrifice my life to this. So what do I expect? I expect me to go in there and finish this, man.
If all goes well, it's 5-0. You wrap up 2019 in a big way. What are you looking ahead at in terms of goals for 2020? Have you allowed yourself to think about contender series and things like that? Or are you just kind of taking things the Bill Belichickian approach, one fight at a time?
One fight at a time, but also, McCarthy and I are strategizing for the future, and we're planning on what we're going to do next. And, of course, my goal and my dream, and it's no knock to Bellator, ONE FC, any other show out there, my dream's to be in the UFC, and that's my goal. And I hopefully plan to be in the UFC by 2020. I mean, that would be nice for me. Contender series, I don't know if that would be the route to go. But, I'm just going to keep winning. I'm going to win this one next Friday. And if I got one more fight left with my contract with Shamrock. If I got to fight another one, so be it. I'll go 6-0. And, I'm going to go until I get that call in the UFC. If the UFC doesn't call, then I might ink another one with Shamrock and just keep running it up. I have a goal, and I have a way that I want to do this, and that we want to do this, McCarthy, and we're going to stick to that plan.
Dustin Lampros, everybody, getting ready to headline Shamrock FC 324 in St. Louis next Friday, taking on Lloyd Thornton. You can watch all the action on Fight TV if you cannot make it to St. Louis. Dustin, I appreciate the time, man. Before we let you go, let the folks know where they can find and follow you on the web, social media, any shout-outs, anything else you want to get off your chest. The floor is yours, man.
Man, I appreciate you having me on here and letting me chat with you. You can follow me on social media at Scrappy135MMA. That'd be my Instagram, and Facebook's just Dustin Lampros. So, follow me on there. I shout out to all my sponsors, everyone who backs me and continues to back me throughout this journey of mine. And let's get it. Next weekend, I'm coming out with that first-round finish.
Thank you for sharing your story, Dustin. I really appreciate it. All the best to you next Friday in St. Louis.
Awesome. I appreciate it, my man. You have a good one.